Welcome to the Ukrainian Institute of America. You are about to take a journey through one of the nation's most historic buildings and an architectural treasure reflecting a unique period in New York City's past. The history of this building begins almost 125 years ago in 1887, when Isaac Fletcher, successful manufacturer and president of the Barrett Manufacturing Company, as well as the New York Coal and Tar Company, was in need for more space to house his art collection. Fletcher purchased this 32 by 100-foot lot on the southeast corner of 79th Street and 5th Avenue from railroad investor Henry Cook. Cook had purchased the entire city block between 78th and 79th Streets and 5th and Madison Avenues in 1880. To safeguard the area from the growing development of high-rises, Cook placed restrictions on each deed of land he sold on the block, specifying that all future building must be to residential scale. It is the only block on 5th Avenue that continues to look much as it did prior to World War I. To build his residence, Fletcher commissioned the famed Gilded Age architect Charles Pierpont Henry Gilbert, also known as C.P.H. Gilbert. Construction lasted only 2 years, from 1897 to 1899, and cost roughly $200,000 at the time, or $4.7 million today. Fletcher lived in the mansion together with his wife, and according to a 1905 census, they employed a staff of 8, most of whom were of Scandinavian origin. The two owned a considerable art collection that included antiques from Morocco, Egypt, and China, and paintings by Rembrandt, Reynolds, and Rubens, as well as a portrait of Fletcher himself and a tableau of his mansion, viewed as the backdrop to bucolic Central Park scene by Jean-François Raffaelli. Fletcher died in 1917, predeceased by his wife several years earlier. His estate, worth roughly $133 million today, was bequeathed to the nearby Metropolitan Museum of Art. In 1920, the Met sold the house to Harry Ford Sinclair, a self-made oil prospector who had founded the Sinclair Consolidated Oil Corporation. Sinclair dreamt of becoming bigger than Rockefeller. He lived in the mansion during the infamous Teapot Dome scandal of 1922, which uncovered numerous instances of fraud and corruption by Sinclair and others in oil land lease agreements with the United States government. After serving a short prison term and his reputation destroyed, Sinclair sold the mansion in 1930 to Augustus Van Horn Stuyvesant. Stuyvesant moved into the mansion with his sister Anne, both the last direct descendants of Peter Stuyvesant, the last Director General of Dutch New Netherlands, of which New Amsterdam, New York City's former name, was a part. Anne Stuyvesant died in 1938, leaving Augustus to live in the mansion for another 15 years alone. According to a July 1939 Fortune magazine article, mansions like these left on Fifth Avenue at the time stood closed, symbols not of power, but of decay. Stuyvesant died in 1953 and was buried in the family vault at St. Mark's in the Bowery at 10th Street and 2nd Avenue. His was the last interment there. After his death, the mansion was sold at auction. In 1955, after a search that took 7 years, the Ukrainian Institute of America purchased the mansion and has been the building's longest-standing resident. The building of the Ukrainian Institute is one of New York's most architecturally historic locations. Its exterior and interior are almost entirely original to when it was constructed 112 years ago. When Gilbert completed the mansion in 1899, the result was this 6-story, 16,000-square-foot residence designed in the architect's signature French Gothic style. Other examples of Gilbert's artistry include the Jewish Museum, with pronounced similarities to this location. Gilbert incorporated elaborate moldings, a pinnacle-studded high mansard roof, and an oversized entryway reached by a granite bridge crossing a moat-like courtyard, making the mansion stand out on what was called Fifth Avenue's Millionaire's Row. The mansion is distinguished from its counterparts by its 2 side street addresses, 2 East 79th Street, as well as 975 Fifth Avenue, which is still marked on a column in front of the building today, as well as the sign with the headquarters of the Ukrainian Institute of America. The Ukrainian Institute of America was founded in 1948 and was originally headquartered in West Islip, New York. The organization was founded by a prominent Ukrainian-American immigrant, industrialist and inventor William Jus. Jus came to America with $25 in his pocket and amassed here a fortune after inventing and manufacturing an aircraft cowling fastener, later used in planes around the world. He never forgot his Ukrainian roots and was very active in New York City's Ukrainian community that at the time was growing in a period of post-World War II immigration. Jus founded the organization with a two-pronged mission: to help newly arrived Ukrainian immigrants adapt to the American way of life, and to promote a greater understanding in the American population about the culture, history, and traditions of Ukraine. A few years after its inception, the Institute quickly outgrew its West Islip home, and Jus began to search for a larger, more prominent location. He was presented with many buildings in New York City, most of which at the time had been boarded-up mansions from a bygone era. One of the last buildings presented to him was this building. With its unique architectural style and prestigious address on Manhattan's Museum Mile, it was a perfect location. Jus personally purchased the building on May 23, 1955 for $255,000, $1.8 million today, and transferred it to the organization 2 months later. The Ukrainian Institute has been the longest-standing occupant in the building's history. The mission and work of the organization has remained unchanged, offering a rich presentation of cultural, educational, and historic programs for the Ukrainian community and the general public. This includes exhibits by up-and-coming Ukrainian artists who would otherwise not have the opportunity to showcase their work in the competitive New York City art world. The Institute has presented numerous high-level conferences on current-day issues and historical issues in Ukraine, such as the Orange Revolution and topics of Ukrainian history, and the annual Music at the Institute concert series has presented Ukrainian influences on chamber music to New York City audiences for over 20 years. When the organization moved to the building, its mission also grew to include architectural stewardship. In 1964, when the Brokaw mansion across the street was demolished to make way for the current apartment building, the Ukrainian Institute joined the growing movement to protect New York City's architectural landmarks. A decade later, it secured national landmark status for the mansion, protecting it for generations to come. Since that time, the organization has protected the building through many restoration projects. It replaced the roof using original materials such as slate and copper, treated the interior woodwork, including restoration of damaged wood and the marble flooring, repaired the wrought iron fence, and completed a large-scale exterior cleaning project hailed by the New York Times. In 2003, the Ukrainian Institute secured a $270,000 matching grant by Save America's Treasures, a joint partnership between the National Park Service and the National Trust for Historic Preservation, dedicated to identifying and rescuing the enduring symbols of American tradition that define us as a nation. The grant was used for a building electrical upgrade, which was the most pressing preservation need at the time. An additional matching grant of $70,000 was awarded by the New York State Environmental Protection Fund and was used to repair and restore about half of the building's windows. The restoration projects were completed in June of 2009. Maintaining the architectural significance of this building is a constant effort and will require additional funding. Through the years, the Ukrainian Institute has been able to preserve this building for posterity through the generous support of its membership, the Ukrainian community, and its friends. We hope you will join our efforts by making a tax-deductible contribution during your visit today. Your tour of the building's first 4 floors will now begin, as the Institute seeks new ways to increase the public's exposure to Ukrainian culture and to the unique historic and architectural significance of the Fletcher Sinclair Mansion. We hope you enjoy your visit and come back soon.